What if I told you that the greatest threat to America's security right now isn't on the battlefield but floating silently above your head? Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing your GPS doesn't work, your phone can't connect, your bank transactions are frozen, and the US military is suddenly blind to incoming missile launches. That's not a sci-fi movie plot, it's the nightmare scenario experts warn could become reality if Russia or China deploy nuclear weapons in space. Congressman Mike Turner says the danger is real, NATO's leadership is sounding alarms, and defense officials are calling it day zero.
From Ohio, Mr. Turner.
Mr. Secretary, thank you for your written statement, and also thank you for your recognition of the importance of our nuclear deterrent, and specifically our investment in our modernization of our nuclear deterrent. We are behind, as you know, in the modernization of our nuclear stockpile. Your recognition of our investment in our triad and our command and control is incredibly important. Thank you also for your recognition of the importance of our future investment in missile defense and the importance that the Golden Dome will play. The Secretary General of NATO has recently made statements of his concern of Russia's future attempt to place an anti-satellite nuclear weapon into space. Specifically, he has said, "We are aware of reports that Russia is examining the possibility of placing nuclear weapons in space. This is very worrying. Space is also very important for our deterrence and defense, just as important as land, sea, air, and cyberspace. In recent years, space has become increasingly clouded, dangerous, and unpredictable. We know that competition in space is fierce. I recently had the opportunity to speak to him. He was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in my community as we were commemorating the 30th anniversary of the Peace Accords. His concern was that this is not getting worldwide enough of attention. We had General Saltzman recently in front of the committee. He has characterized that if Russia were to place an anti-satellite nuclear weapon into space, that would be day zero, that if that was put in space, that next day, that it would be irresponsible for us to count on space, that we would have to spend trillions of dollars and seek technology that we don't have to find solutions as an alternative to space, both commercially, for military, in really to redo what is really society today. As you know, it would affect both our nuclear deterrence, our efforts for missile defense, even our investments in Golden Dome. In this venue, obviously, we can't discuss all of the details of what we're doing, but I would ask if you would please confirm that this is a threat that is a priority to the Department of Defense, as it has been characterized by the Secretary General of NATO, and acknowledge that as it is a priority for us to prevent the deployment of nuclear weapons in space, and that it is a priority for us to work with our allies to uphold our commitment to the Outer Space Nuclear Treaty that prohibits the deployment of nuclear weapons in space. Sir.
Well, thank you for the question, sir. As you alluded to, there are a number of aspects to this question or answer that can't be discussed here, but I would underline our complete commitment to the space domain, to the hardening of the space domain, to prevention of escalations in the space domain, but most importantly, to the dominance of the space domain. I mean, it is the future of how we see, it's the future of how we sense, it could be the future of how our adversaries fight and how we deal with that. So I think President Trump, yet again, was ahead of the curve when he created the Space Force in his first administration. People said we didn't need it. We are relying on it every single day now to ensure, alongside the Space Force and private enterprise, that we're delivering the capabilities we need that are resilient, that are redundant, that are capable of all aspects of all domain warfare, if necessary. And preventing adversaries from gaining an advantage is a huge part of how we look at space.
This threat is not classified. Russia's threat of deploying an anti-satellite nuclear weapon in space is not classified. Obviously, this is a priority for the Department of Defense, and I just want your confirmation that this is a priority that you're tracking, and you too see that as a threat to the United States, and certainly to the United States and our space infrastructure, and certainly our whole national security infrastructure.
We track all potential escalations, yes, sir.
And lawyer here, I just want to help you out because people try to twist your words. You are not confirming in your testimony today that at the Pentagon there are plans for invading or taking by force Greenland, correct? That is not your testimony today.
All my testimony is that the Pentagon has plans for any number of contingencies.
It is not your testimony today that there are plans at the Pentagon for taking by force or invading Greenland, correct? Because I'm sure as hell hope that it is not your testimony.
We look forward to working with Greenland to ensure that it is secured from any potential threats.
Excellent. I yield back.
Yet while politicians argue and the media chases distractions, our rivals are racing to seize the high ground of orbit. And if we ignore it much longer, the price could be catastrophic. Congressman Mike Turner didn't come into the hearing room with empty rhetoric. He came with urgency, with frustration, and with a warning too many Americans aren't hearing. While cable pundits laugh off the Space Force or turn security briefings into sound bites, Turner is blunt: America is falling behind in modernizing its nuclear deterrent. But here's the twist: he isn't just talking about traditional nukes on land or submarines. He's pointing to something far more dangerous: the possibility of nuclear weapons in orbit. To him, this isn't about flexing military muscle, it's about survival in a world where rivals are already experimenting with tech that could cripple America's defenses overnight. When Turner speaks of modernization, he's not simply asking for bigger missiles or fancier silos. He's acknowledging that the next generation of deterrence will rely on space just as much as land, sea, air, or cyber. And the NATO Secretary General has already gone on record warning that Russia might be preparing to deploy anti-satellite nuclear weapons in orbit. Think about that for a second: not a missile aimed at a city, but a bomb that can sit quietly above the Earth, capable of wiping out satellites with a single detonation. General Saltzman, the chief of space operations, called it Day Zero. That's the phrase he used to describe the moment such a weapon is launched, because the day after that America would never look at space the same way again. Consider just how fragile our dependence really is. Every missile warning system we trust, every GPS-guided aircraft or ship, every secure communication link between troops in combat, all of it runs through satellites. Take those out and America becomes blind, deaf, and vulnerable in an instant. This isn't fear-mongering, it's reality. Even something as simple as withdrawing cash, paying with a debit card, or tracking a package could collapse if those satellites were destroyed or jammed. That's why Turner hammers the point: this isn't a side issue, it's the backbone of national security. And losing it would be like losing the foundation of your house; everything else crumbles with it. For decades, space was treated as a stage for exploration, science, and national pride. The Apollo missions, the Space Shuttle program, and the International Space Station painted space as the frontier of discovery. But that's not the picture anymore. Today, space is a contested battlefield. Russia and China aren't sending astronauts to orbit for bragging rights. They're developing tools to dominate it. Imagine the Cold War, except this time the nuclear standoff is hanging in zero gravity. Satellites aren't just weather trackers anymore, they're the eyes, ears, and nervous system of modern warfare. Whoever controls orbit controls the future. And Turner is clear: ignoring that reality means surrendering the high ground before the fight even begins. That's where the Space Force enters the story. When President Trump first announced its creation, it was ridiculed as a political gimmick, a punchline for late-night comedy. But fast forward a few years, and the laughter has faded. The Space Force is now central to America's defense strategy. Every day its operators monitor orbital threats, defend satellites, and prepare for scenarios most Americans never consider. Turner doesn't describe it as an optional add-on. He frames it as essential for survival in the 21st century. Space isn't a playground. It's the newest warfighting domain, and without a dedicated force to defend it, the U.S. would already be behind. And the threats aren't slowing down. Reports claim Russia is actively examining how to deploy nuclear devices in orbit. Rumors suggest China is not only advancing hypersonic weapons but also forming partnerships with rogue states to expand its reach. These aren't just headlines meant to spook people, they're consistent warnings from defense officials and NATO allies. And every year America debates, delays, or diverts attention, those rivals keep building. That's why Turner's urgency feels so sharp. He knows complacency now means chaos later. If America fails to respond, the stakes couldn't be higher. The credibility of U.S. deterrence rests on its ability to detect, respond, and neutralize threats. Without satellites, trillions of dollars in defense investments could be rendered worthless overnight. More dangerously, allies who depend on American protection might lose faith, turning instead toward other powers for security. And that's exactly what Russia and China want: to fracture alliances, sow doubt, and undermine U.S. dominance without ever firing a shot on Earth. In orbit, a single move could tilt the balance of global power. Turner's bottom line is simple: act now or regret later. Investing in counter space technology isn't optional, it's survival. Building redundancy into satellites, creating systems that can resist or recover from attacks, and forming ironclad alliances to enforce the nuclear space treaty, all of this is critical. Space isn't the Wild West. Letting adversaries weaponize it without consequences would be a historic failure, one that future generations would pay for dearly. America has the resources, the brains, and the allies to prevent this. What it lacks is urgency. And Turner's message is that the clock is already ticking. Some still dismiss the concern as paranoia, but look closer. The Department of Defense doesn't call preventing nukes in space a priority just to drum up funding. It's because they understand the catastrophic consequences of ignoring the threat. The so-called Outer Space Treaty was signed decades ago to ban the deployment of nuclear weapons in orbit, but treaties are only as strong as the willingness to enforce them. Rivals who see weakness will exploit it. And when that moment comes, the consequences won't just be felt in defense circles. They'll be felt in every home, every business, every phone connected to the grid. Turner and those sounding the alarm aren't saying this to scare people. They're saying it because they've seen the intelligence, spoken with generals, and watched the adversaries accelerate while America debates politics. The truth is harsh but simple: space is survival, and failing to defend it is failing to defend everything else. So here's the reality we have to face. Satellites aren't just tools, they're the backbone of modern civilization. Losing them means losing our way of life. Rivals are already plotting moves in orbit that could blind us in seconds. And unless America invests, prepares, and deters right now, the next World War might not start with tanks crossing a border. It might start in silence miles above our heads. If you've made it this far, you already know how high the stakes are. The question is, will we act in time, or will we wait until the day we wake up and realize we've been left behind? That's the choice we're facing. And it's a choice that will decide not just America's security, but the future of the entire world. So if you believe this story matters, share your thoughts below, hit that subscribe button, and stay tuned. The next video dives into an even more controversial chapter of this story, one that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew.